This week on Engage the Sage.
Everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week, I'm going to talk to you about why you should review your teaching every day. When it comes to striving for teaching excellence, which is something we should do all the time, it's important that we're intentional in our practices. What that means is not only should we design our practices to work, we should review them to make sure that they are working, and we should do this all the time. So what I'm going to talk to you today are some recommendations that I have for how you should do a daily review of your teaching. My first recommendation is that you should evaluate your teaching daily. Every day that you teach, you should review your teaching. I want you to think about all your practices. I want you to think about your pre-class banter. I want to think about how you opened class and how you greeted your students. I want you to think about how you thanked them for being there. I want you to think about how you did your announcements. Then I'm going to want you to think about how you structured that day's content. I want you to think about how you made transitions. I want you to think about how your examples went over with your students. I want you to think about how you created opportunities for your students to ask questions and how you validated them for participating. I want you to think about how you applied the 4 C's to class that day, how you were clear, complete, concise, and compelling in helping your students learn. I want you to think about how you brought peace to your class, how you showed your preparation, your expertise, your authenticity, your caring, and your engagement. And I want you to do this all the time. Now, doing this can be a little bit intimidating and potentially overwhelming. So my second recommendation for doing these daily reviews is to come up with a formal plan about how it is that you're going to do this. What I kind of laid out in my first recommendation are the kinds of things that I review when I'm thinking about how my class went. So from the moment that I walked into class, from the time that I walk out of class, and everything in between, I'm thinking about what I did and how it went with the purpose of helping me do it better next time. I'm not going to beat myself up for something that went suboptimally, but I'm thinking about the information that I got from my practices in that day to help me get better next time. And I think this is important when we're striving for teaching excellence. So when I'm doing my review, I know the aspects that I'm going to be monitoring. I know the things that I'm going to be looking for. I know the points that I wanted to make and failed to make. This is going to be part of my daily review. And I'm going to take notes on my class materials for that day, be they electronic or hard copy, to help me know what that was like moving forward. I also think it's important. I'm going to give myself grace for something that was suboptimal, but I'm also going to celebrate my teaching wins for that day. And I think it's really important that this daily review results in positive reinforcement for our teaching practices. I find when I do this, there might be a comment that I made, a topic that I introduced, a story that I shared that went really well. Making note of that is going to help me teach that same content next semester. Relatedly, my third recommendation, this might go into how you structure your plan, is I'm going to recommend you think about keeping a teaching journal. A teaching journal can be a notebook, it can be a Word document on your computer, it can be whatever. But it's a place where you actually keep track of all of these reflections. And this can be as formal or as informal as you want this to be. In that journal, you can kind of say, I taught on Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. and this is how it went. You could even give yourself some information about how attendance was that day. You could even give yourself information about how energetic or how excited you felt about the material that day. You could even include things like, it was really raining outside and I think that's why my students weren't as happy as they normally are. You might include things like, I didn't sleep well the night before. But it might provide some context for how your performance was in that class. The great thing about keeping a formal or an informal journal is you know where to look for your notes. Sometimes I do find myself that when I take notes on those teaching materials and I don't transfer them to a formal journal, I don't know where to look next semester when I'm trying to remember what really went well that day. What was the example I wanted to remember? If you keep a teaching journal, you know where to look. My fourth recommendation, and I know we do this pretty well with our students, or at least we should, maybe not as well for ourselves, but we should, is to use a growth mindset for your own teaching. Reflecting on how we teach is a vulnerable experience. Watching ourselves teach is a vulnerable experience. When we're in that situation and we're critiquing ourselves, we might find that we're actually being overly self-critical. My recommendation to review our teaching every day is not to make you overly self-critical and to not make yourself super self-conscious about being in the classroom. What I'm trying to do is actually normalize that experience so it becomes less threatening, so you can focus on the things you did well, so you can repeat them, and the things that you might want to revise in the future. One of the things that I love best about teaching is we have so many do-overs. So if Thursday class doesn't go as well as I want it to, I've got next Thursday. That class doesn't go well, I get the next class. This semester doesn't go well, I've got another semester coming up. We have so many do-overs available to us. And when we're reviewing our teaching every day, it means that we are allowing ourselves to grow and do better in the do-over. If we don't do this reflection, it might be that thing that I did that was suboptimal. I might repeat that thing if I haven't reflected on it. Now, I also recommend someone else come observe you. I don't think it's always going to be you who needs to do the reflection on yourself. But I think that this self-reflection might be a good step to that peer observation, which you might see as a little bit more threatening at some point in your career. My fifth recommendation is that you can start doing this daily review anytime. You don't have to wait for the first day of a new semester to make this happen. You can start this today. You can start this tomorrow. The sooner you start, the sooner you benefit from the reflections. The sooner you start to actually do this kind of formal process of reviewing yourself as a teacher, the sooner you can learn what is working well for you and what you might want to revise. I highly recommend you start this process sooner rather than later, and it'll become less threatening the sooner you get started. I think when we implement a daily review of our teaching, we are collecting data that is going to help us achieve teaching excellence. This daily process is going to get easier and easier, and you're going to reap so many benefits from seeing yourself succeed in the class and also identify areas for growth. In the comments below, I would love to hear any recommendations that you have for reviewing your own teaching, especially if you're going to do it every day. Thank you for watching this episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.